Hi, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about LIRAs, or locked-in retirement accounts. We're going to go through what a LIRA actually is. We're going to go through some of the different rules that are governed differently by every jurisdiction or province. And then I'm going to rank them from worst to best. And there is a very clear best, and there's a very clear, although maybe controversial, worst. So let's get into it. All right, so let's start with what a LIRA actually is. Essentially, a LIRA is just a more complicated version of an RRSP. And there are two reasons why it's more complicated. Number one, you would never have contributed to a LIRA on your own. The only way you can start a LIRA is by being part of an organization that has a defined contribution pension plan. So this would have been started when you worked for an organization that you and them were contributing money to. The second part that makes it slightly more complicated is that it is governed by different jurisdictions. RRSPs have the exact same rules no matter where you are in the country. LIRAs do not. Every jurisdiction, which is essentially province or territory or federal, has their own rules for how you can access your money from a LIRA. There are essentially four different categories that these rules are going to fit within. There's a small accounts exemption, there's diminished life expectancy, there's financial hardship, and there's the splitability of your LIRA. And what's nice is that over the last number of years, all of the jurisdictions have aligned themselves on the first three, so these are all equal. If you have diminished life expectancy and you can prove it, you can have access to your LIRA money. It's not always easy proving it because you do need signed notes from your doctor that say that you do have a diminished life expectancy, which is usually not an easy thing to get from a doctor. For financial hardship, same thing. As long as you can prove it, you can get access to the money. All the different jurisdictions also allow you to use what's called a small accounts exemption, which is just saying my LIRA is below a certain value, which as of right now, the calculation for that is 40% of YMPE, which I'll put on the screen here. And you can see if your LIRA is below that value, you can access the money fully by moving it into an RRSP. That leaves us with splitability of your pension. So when I'm ranking them, this is what I'm going to be using to rank them. So let's get into the rankings. So before I get into the actual grades for these, I want to just go over why splitability is so important. Like I said before, many of the clients that come to me have LIRAs, and that's fantastic. It's usually a big part of people's financial plan if they worked at that organization for a long time. The problem is LIRAs have one other very annoying, very intrusive restriction that gets applied to them once they've been converted. So once you're at the stage where you actually start drawing income from your LIRA, you convert it not into a RIF like an RRSP, but into a LIF. LIFs, like RIFs, have minimum withdrawals. And I'll show a chart a little bit later that shows some of the minimum withdrawals. They usually start around the mid 5% and they climb as you get older. The problem is that LIFs also have maximums. I hate having maximums imposed upon me by the government. That literally means that if you have taken the maximum amount out in a year and you have something that you need more money for, you have no access to that money unless you can prove the diminished life expectancy, financial hardship, or again, the small accounts exemption from earlier. So we want to get as much of that restriction out of your financial plan as possible. And by allowing their jurisdictional people to split their LIRAs, some of these jurisdictions allow people to move that money not into a LIF, but into a RIF instead that has no maximum. So starting with the grade D provinces or jurisdictions. These are the provinces that have 0% splitability. I find this very, very annoying that you have 0%. It means, again, lots of people have built up robust LIRAs as a big part of their financial plan, and they're going to have maximums imposed upon them for the rest of their life. These provinces are BC, Quebec, Newfoundland, and Nova Scotia. Moving to grade C, these provinces have 50% splitability on their liras, and that includes Alberta, Ontario, federal jurisdiction, which the federal rules also oversee the territories, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, and Yukon, and Manitoba, kind of. Manitoba actually has two sets of rules. Starting at 55, you can only split 50%. Once you reach 65, then Manitoba transfers into grade B, which is 100% splitability with the other province that has this, which is Saskatchewan. Meaning that, let's review that very quickly. If you have a Saskatchewan jurisdiction LIRA, doesn't matter where you live in the country, the jurisdiction is based on where the company operated. If you have a Saskatchewan jurisdiction LIRA, you can take 100% of it and move it into a RIF. It's a non-taxable event, you invest it in the same way, and you remove 100% of that restriction, saying that you can't take out more than X dollars. Alternatively, if you have a BC LIRA that has a 0% splitability, you will never have that option on that jurisdiction unless, again, you can prove the diminished life expectancy or financial hardship. All right, this leaves us with our last two jurisdictions. One of these controversially will be, in my opinion, the worst jurisdictional rules around splitability in all of Canada, and the other is the best. And on that side, it is the best by a long shot. It's not even close. Let's start with the worst though. That is for you in New Brunswick. You have, I believe, the worst rules. And the reason I say it's controversial is because you will have access to some splitability from your LIRA. So it's better than zero. It's better than BC, Quebec, Newfoundland, and Nova Scotia in that regard. However, the New Brunswick government made it so needlessly complicated that I just find it very, very annoying. Your calculation is 3 times the maximum withdrawal in this year, or 25%. Sorry, I'm going to correct that. It's the lesser of 3 times the maximum this year, or 25%. Anytime lesser of is the way a sentence starts, you know it's not going to be to your favor. And I'll put a chart here on the side here. These are the maximum withdrawals that you can take in these particular ages in New Brunswick. And you can see that it's not until you're 71 that the 3 times multiple doesn't apply, right? Because if you're getting 5 point something percent times 3, you're only going to be able to get 15, 16% out in those years. Frankly, I find these numbers just a little bit insulting. Make it 0, make it 50%. Don't make people have to have anxiety about calculating it incorrectly or anything like that. I just find this unnecessary. Which leaves me with my number one absolute best LIRA rules. If you haven't figured it out, it's Prince Edward Island. PEI's rules are absolutely fabulous because they do not have LIRAs, so it's a bit of a cheat, I guess. They don't acknowledge them there. It's not a form of account that you can create while in PEI. It's just RRSPs out there. I absolutely think that this is what the country should shift to. All the jurisdictions should. It is PEI's government showing their people that they trust them to handle their own investments, and I like that mindset quite a bit. I find it very interesting that the two provinces that have the most complicated and the most simple LIRA rules are right beside each other, but I guess that's a topic for another day. If it's time for you to take a look at your LIRA, how splitability will fit into your financial plan, there'll be a link in the description down below that'll come directly to me. Looking forward to hearing from you, and until next time, keep planning.